Why the Soul is Protected, The Hidden Truth Most People Never Consider by David Russo. What if one thing you spend your entire life trying to protect, your body, your success, your reputation, your possessions, was never the most important thing about you? What if the deepest part of who you are has always existed beyond the reach of loss, failure, pain, and even death? For centuries, humanity has searched for an answer to a question hidden beneath every human experience. Is there something within us that cannot be destroyed? Something untouched by the passing of time, the changing world, and the storms of life? Perhaps the greatest mystery is not whether the soul exists, but whether we have misunderstood its true nature. Maybe the soul was never fragile. Maybe it was never as vulnerable as we believed. Maybe the part of you that matters most has always been protected. Introduction. Since the beginning of human civilization, people have searched for answers to one of life's greatest mysteries. What is the soul? Across cultures, religions, and philosophical traditions, humanity has explored the idea that beneath our physical body, changing thoughts, and passing emotions exists something deeper, an inner essence that gives life meaning and purpose. What if the most valuable part of you has never truly been vulnerable? We spend our lives protecting our bodies, possessions, reputations, and futures. Yet, many spiritual teachers and philosophers have suggested that the deepest part of who we are exists beyond ordinary harm. The mind can struggle, the heart can suffer, and circumstances can change, but the soul may remain untouched. This idea raises some of humanity's greatest questions. If the soul cannot be destroyed, why do we experience pain, loss, and fear? Many traditions suggest that suffering does not mean the soul is broken. Instead, it reveals the difference between what is temporary and what is eternal. The idea of a protected soul also challenges how we see ourselves. We often define our identity through achievements, relationships, memories, and struggles. But what if these are only parts of our story? What if something deeper exists beyond everything that changes? In this journey, we will explore the mystery of the protected soul through ancient wisdom, philosophy, spirituality, and modern perspectives. We will examine why so many traditions describe the soul as enduring and how this understanding can transform the way we face life's greatest challenges. Perhaps the deepest part of who we are is far stronger, more resilient, and more enduring than we ever imagined. Chapter 1. What is the soul? Before we can understand why the soul is protected, we must first seek to understand what the soul truly is. Across cultures and traditions, the soul has been described as the sacred essence within us, the source of consciousness, the light of our being, and the part of us that reaches beyond the physical world. The soul is often understood as the deepest and most enduring part of who we are. While our thoughts, emotions, experiences, and circumstances change throughout life, the soul is believed to remain constant. It is the quiet presence within us that connects us to our true nature and to something greater than ourselves. Spiritual traditions throughout history have taught that the soul carries a divine connection. Some describe it as a gift from a higher power, while others see it as a reflection of the universal spirit that flows through all living things. Though these teachings differ, they share the belief that human existence is more than what can be seen or measured. Even in modern times, people often sense this inner reality when they speak of discovering their purpose, returning to themselves, or feeling connected to something deeper. These experiences point toward an awareness that there is something sacred within us beyond the roles we play and the challenges we face. If the soul is the eternal and most authentic part of our being, then protecting the soul means preserving what is most sacred within us. The chapters ahead will explore the meaning of this protection and what it reveals about our connection to ourselves, others, and the divine. Chapter 2. Why Ancient Traditions Called the Soul Eternal. Across thousands of years of human history, one remarkable idea has appeared again and again in cultures separated by vast differences and different ways of life. The soul is eternal. Long before modern communication connected civilizations, people from India, Egypt, Greece, China, the Middle East, and many indigenous traditions spoke of an invisible essence that survives beyond the physical body. Although their beliefs differed in important ways, they shared a conviction that human existence extends beyond birth and death. This recurring theme has led many scholars to wonder why so many cultures independently arrived at such a similar conclusion. In the Eastern traditions, the soul is often understood as participating in a much larger spiritual journey. Hindu philosophy teaches that the soul passes through many lifetimes, learning lessons and gradually moving toward liberation from the cycle of rebirth. Buddhism approaches the question differently, focusing less on an unchanging individual soul and more on the continuity of consciousness and the consequences of one's actions. Despite these differences, both traditions encourage people to look beyond temporary experiences and recognize that physical life is only one chapter in a much greater story. Eternity, in this view, is not simply endless time, but a reality that transcends ordinary human understanding. The Western religious traditions also affirm that enduring nature of the soul, though they often describe its destiny in different terms. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam teach that human beings possess a spiritual dimension that continues after death and ultimately stands before God. In these traditions, earthly life is significant because it shapes character, deepens faith, and prepares the soul for its eternal relationship with its Creator. Death is therefore seen not as the end of existence, but as a transition into another stage of reality. The promise of the soul's endurance offers hope that goodness, justice, and love have meaning beyond the limitations of this world. Ancient philosophers reached similar conclusions through reason rather than revelation. Plato argued that the soul belongs to a higher realm of truth and exists independently of the body, while later thinkers explored whether consciousness could be reduced to material processes alone. Many concluded that qualities such as moral awareness, the search for meaning, and the capacity for self-reflection pointed towards something greater than physical matter. Even when they disagreed about the soul's exact nature, they shared a fascination with the possibility that the deepest part of human identity could not simply disappear with the body. The widespread belief in an eternal soul has endured because it speaks to questions that every generation eventually faces. Why do humans long for lasting meaning in a temporary world? Why does love feel as though it reaches beyond time? Why do people instinctively hope that justice and compassion ultimately matter? Ancient traditions did not claim to answer every mystery, but they consistently suggested that the soul is not defined by the changing conditions of earthly life. If they are correct, then the soul's protection lies in its eternal nature, remaining untouched by time, surviving every season of life, and continuing its journey long after the body has completed its own. Chapter 3. The difference between the mind and the soul. One of the greatest sources of confusion in understanding ourselves is the tendency to treat the mind and the soul as though they are the same. In everyday conversation, people often use these terms interchangeably, yet many philosophical and spiritual traditions make an important distinction between them. The mind is the center of thoughts, memories, emotions, imagination, and reasoning. It is constantly active, interpreting the world through experience and responding to changing circumstances. The soul, however, is often described as something deeper, the unchanging essence that quietly exists beneath the movement of the mind. The mind is remarkably powerful, but it is also deeply influenced by the world around it. It absorbs information from childhood, forms beliefs through experience, and reacts to both joy and hardship. A single conversation can brighten the mind, while a painful event can leave it burdened for years. Thoughts can race with anxiety, become clouded by fear, or settle into peace depending on what we encounter each day. Because the mind is always processing new information, it is naturally subject to change. This changing nature is one reason many traditions distinguish it from the soul. The soul, by contrast, is frequently described as the silent observer behind every experience. Imagine standing beside a river and watching the water flow past. The current represents the constant movement of thoughts and emotions, while the one observing from the shore remains still. According to many spiritual teachings, the soul is like that observer. It witnesses happiness without becoming happiness, and it witnesses sorrow without becoming sorrow. While the mind experiences life's endless changes, the soul remains grounded in a deeper reality that is not defined by any single moment. This distinction can profoundly change the way we respond to life's challenges. If we believe we are nothing more than our thoughts, then every fear feels permanent and every failure appears to define us. However, if we recognize that our thoughts are experiences rather than our identity, we gain a measure of freedom. Difficult emotions may still arise, but they no longer have the final word about who we are. Many practices such as meditation, prayer, contemplation, and mindful reflection are designed to help people step back from the constant activity of the mind and reconnect with the deeper awareness that spiritual traditions associate with the soul. Understanding the difference between the mind and the soul does not diminish the importance of mental or emotional well-being. On the contrary, caring for the mind becomes even more meaningful when we recognize it as an instrument through which the soul expresses itself. A healthy mind allows wisdom, compassion, creativity, and love to shine more clearly in everyday life. Yet, even when the mind struggles with doubt, confusion, or emotional pain, many traditions maintain that the soul remains untouched at its core. This belief forms one of the central ideas of this book. Beneath every changing thought and every passing emotion lies an enduring essence that no hardship can ultimately erase. Chapter 4. Can the soul be harmed? Few questions are more personal than whether the soul can be harmed. Most people have experienced moments that leave lasting emotional scars: betrayal, grief, failure, abuse, loss, or regret. These experiences can reshape how we think, feel, and relate to others. In the midst of deep suffering, it is easy to believe that something essential within us has been permanently broken. Yet, across many spiritual and philosophical traditions, a different perspective emerges. While pain may wound the mind and the heart, it does not destroy the soul. The deepest part of our being remains intact, even when life feels overwhelming. This idea does not deny the reality of suffering or minimize its effects. Emotional trauma can influence behavior, relationships, and physical health for years. Psychological wounds deserve compassion, support, and, when needed, professional care. Recognizing the resilience of the soul should never be used to dismiss another person's pain or suggest that healing is unnecessary. Instead, it offers hope that beneath the layers of hurt, there remains an inner foundation that has not been erased. Healing, from this perspective, is not about creating a new soul, but rediscovering the wholeness that has always existed beneath the wounds. Many religious traditions describe the soul as being refined rather than damaged by life's hardships. Just as gold is purified through intense heat, the human spirit is often portrayed as growing stronger through perseverance, humility, and faith. Challenges may expose fear, pride, or weakness, but they can also reveal courage, patience, forgiveness, and compassion that might otherwise remain hidden. This does not mean suffering is inherently good or should be sought after. Rather, it suggests that even painful experiences can become part of a larger process of transformation without diminishing the soul's essential nature. Feelings of guilt and shame also cause many people to question the condition of their soul. After making serious mistakes, it is common to wonder whether one's inner goodness has been permanently lost. Most spiritual traditions distinguish between actions and identity. Harmful choices have real consequences and often require repentance, accountability, and sincere efforts to make amends. Yet these traditions also teach that the possibility of renewal remains. The soul itself is not defined solely by its worst moments. Its capacity for growth, forgiveness, and the moral renewal reflects a depth that extends beyond any single chapter of life. Believing that the soul cannot be destroyed changes how we understand resilience. It reminds us that our value does not depend entirely on success, failure, praise, or criticism. Life may leave us with scars that become part of our story, but scars are evidence of healing as much as they are reminders of pain. If the soul is truly protected, then no disappointment, tragedy, or mistake has the final word over who we are. Beneath every hardship remains an enduring source of dignity, hope, and possibility. A quiet strength that invites us to keep moving forward even when the path ahead is uncertain. Chapter 5. Why difficult experiences exist. If the soul is protected, then one of the most natural questions to ask is why suffering exists at all. Why do people experience heartbreak, illness, disappointment, injustice, and loss if the deepest part of them cannot truly be harmed? Throughout history, philosophers, theologians, and spiritual teachers have wrestled with this question. While no single answer satisfies everyone, many traditions suggest that life's hardship are not evidence that the soul has been abandoned. Instead, they are often viewed as experiences that shape character, deepen understanding, and reveal strengths that comfort and success alone cannot produce. Consider how many of life's greatest lessons emerge from moments we never would have chosen. Patience is learned while waiting. Courage is discovered when fear must be faced. Compassion often grows from having experienced pain ourselves. Forgiveness becomes meaningful only after we have been hurt. These qualities cannot simply be taught through words. They are developed through experience. From this perspective, difficult seasons are not interruptions to life's purpose, but part of the process through which wisdom matures. The soul, remaining protected beneath these experiences, gains insight without losing its essential nature. Many spiritual traditions compare life to a school in which every challenge carries the possibility of growth. Some lessons are joyful, while others are deeply painful. Yet both kinds of experiences contribute to a fuller understanding of ourselves and others. A person who has endured hardship often develops greater empathy, humility, and appreciation for life's ordinary blessings. This does not mean suffering should be welcomed or romanticized. Pain is real, and some experiences leave lasting wounds. The lesson is not that suffering is good, but that meaningful growth can emerge even when and from circumstances that seem unbearable at the time. Modern psychology echoes parts of this ancient wisdom through the concept of resilience. Researchers have observed that many people develop increased emotional strength, deeper relationships, and a renewed sense of purpose after overcoming significant adversity. Although not everyone responds to hardship in the same way, many discovered capacities within themselves that remained hidden until they were tested. This perspective does not remove the need for healing or support, but it reminds us that hardship does not have to define the rest of our lives. Growth and pain can exist together, and one does not erase the other. If the soul is truly protected, then life's challenges take on a different meaning. They are no longer seen merely as obstacles to survive, but as opportunities to become wiser, kinder, and more fully human. Every difficulty invites us to choose how we will respond, with bitterness or compassion, despair or hope, fear or courage. While we cannot control every event that enters our lives, we can decide what those experiences will shape within us. The protected soul is not sheltered from every storm, but it is capable of emerging from each one with greater depth, greater understanding, and a stronger capacity to love. Chapter 6. The Protective Role of Free Will. One of the greatest gifts described in many spiritual traditions is free will, the ability to choose our thoughts, actions, and responses. This freedom allows us to shape our character, build relationships, pursue meaningful goals, and determine the direction of our lives. Yet, free will also introduces the possibility of making harmful decisions. If the soul is protected, why would humanity be given the freedom to choose paths that lead to pain, conflict, or regret? The answer offered by many traditions is that genuine growth is impossible without genuine choice. A protected soul is not a controlled soul, and true love, wisdom, and virtue cannot exist where freedom is absent. Imagine a world in which every decision was predetermined and every action was automatically good. Such a world might eliminate many forms of suffering, but it would also eliminate the opportunity for courage, forgiveness, generosity, and moral responsibility. Kindness has meaning because cruelty is possible. Honesty matters because deception exists. Compassion becomes powerful because suffering is real. Free will gives human beings the opportunity to choose what is right, even when easier or more selfish alternatives are available. In this way, our choices become part of the soul's journey rather than obstacles to it. This freedom also explains why life often feels uncertain. We cannot control every event that happens to us because we share the world with billions of other people, each making their own decisions. The consequences of those choices ripple through families, communities, and nations. At times, we benefit from the goodness of others, while at other times we suffer because of actions beyond our control. Although this reality can seem unfair, many spiritual traditions maintain that the soul's protection is not found in escaping every painful consequence. Instead, it is found in the soul's enduring ability to learn, heal, forgive, and continue growing despite the circumstances it encounters. Free will carries responsibility as well as freedom. Every choice influences the kind of person we become. Small decisions repeated over time shape our habits, our values, and ultimately our character. Choosing honesty strengthens integrity. Choosing patience nurtures wisdom. Choosing forgiveness loosens the grip of resentment. These daily decisions do not change the soul's inherent worth, but they do influence how clearly its qualities are expressed in our lives. The more intentionally we live, the more our actions begin to reflect the compassion, humility, and love that many traditions associate with the soul's true nature. The protective role of free will lies in its ability to transform every experience into an opportunity for growth. Even after failure, another choice is possible. After disappointment comes the chance to preserve. After causing harm comes the opportunity to seek forgiveness and make amends. The soul is not protected because it is shielded from every consequence, but because it is never permanently defined by any single decision. As long as life continues, the possibility of learning, changing, and choosing a better path remains. This enduring capacity for renewal is one of the strongest arguments that the deepest part of who we are possesses a resilience far greater than our mistakes. Chapter 7. The Power of Inner Awareness. In today's fast-moving world, it is easy to become so occupied with responsibilities, distractions, and endless streams of information that we lose touch with our inner lives. Our attention is constantly pulled outward by work, technology, relationships, and daily concerns. While these aspects of life are important, they can also drown out the quiet voice within. Many spiritual traditions teach that beneath the noise of everyday existence lies a deeper awareness, a place of peace that is untouched by changing circumstances. Reconnecting with this inner awareness is often described as rediscovering the protected core of the soul. Throughout history, people have developed practices designed to cultivate this deeper awareness. Meditation invites the mind to become still, allowing thoughts to settle like sediment in calm water. Prayer opens the heart to a relationship with the divine, creating space for trust, gratitude, and guidance. Contemplation encourages thoughtful reflection on life's deepest questions, while mindfulness teaches us to remain fully present in each moment. Although these practices differ across cultures and traditions, they share a common purpose: helping individuals look beyond the constant activity of the mind and recognize the enduring presence that exists beneath it. Many people who regularly engage in these practices describe a profound shift in perspective. Their external circumstances may remain unchanged, yet their relationship with those circumstances begins to transform. Fear no longer dominates every decision. Anxiety loses some of its power. Difficult emotions still arise, but they no longer define one's identity. Instead, people often discover a quiet confidence that comes from recognizing they are more than their passing thoughts or temporary struggles. This inner stability is one reason spiritual disciplines have remained valuable across generations. Inner awareness also influences how we relate to other people. When we become less consumed by our own fears and insecurities, we gain greater capacity to listen, emphasize, and respond with compassion. We become slower to judge and quicker to understand. Many spiritual teachers have suggested that recognizing the sacred depth within ourselves naturally leads us to recognize that same depth within others. If every person possesses a protected soul, then every individual deserves dignity, kindness, and respect, regardless of differences in background, beliefs, or life's experiences. The journey inward is not an escape from the world, but a preparation for living more wisely within it. A person who is connected to their deepest values is often better equipped to face uncertainty, disappointment, and success without losing perspective. The storms of life may still rage, but they no longer shake the foundation of one's identity. The protected soul is not discovered through extraordinary experiences alone, but through the quiet, consistent practice of becoming aware of what has always been present. In silence, reflection, and sincere openness, many people find a peace that reminds them the deepest part of who they are has never been lost. It has only been waiting to be noticed. Chapter 8. What near-death experiences suggest? Few subjects have sparked as much curiosity about the soul as near-death experiences, often referred to as NDES. These accounts come from people who were declared clinically dead for a brief period or came extremely close to death before recovering. Although their backgrounds, beliefs, and cultures vary widely, many describe remarkably similar experiences. Reports frequently include a profound sense of peace, the feeling of leaving the physical body, traveling through darkness toward light, encountering loving beings, or reviewing significant moments from their lives. While these experiences do not prove the existence of the soul, they continue to inspire thoughtful discussion about the nature of consciousness. Researchers who study near-death experiences have documented recurring patterns that appear across different countries and cultures. Many individuals report feeling more alive than ever before, despite being unconscious by medical standards. Others describe an overwhelming sense of unconditional love and acceptance, unlike anything they had experienced during ordinary life. Some speak of meeting deceased loved ones or encountering a radiant presence that communicated understanding without words. Although the details differ from person to person, the emotional impact of these experiences is often profound and long-lasting. One of the most meaningful elements reported by some individuals is a life review, in which they experience important moments from their past and gain a deeper understanding of how their actions affected others. Some describe recognizing times when they caused harm, acted without compassion, or fail to live according to their highest values. Rather than experiencing this as simple judgment or punishment, many portray it as an opportunity for understanding, growth, and change. They describe a sense that they were being shown what they could learn from their choices and were given another chance to return to life with greater awareness, kindness, and purpose. Science offers several possible explanations for near-death experiences. Some researchers suggest they may result from changes in brain activity during periods of extreme stress, reduced oxygen levels, or the effects of naturally occurring chemicals released by the brain. Others argue that these explanations do not fully account for every reported experience, particularly cases in which individuals accurately recall details of events that occurred while they were unconscious. The scientific community continues to investigate these reports with careful skepticism, recognizing that consciousness remains one of the least understood aspects of human existence. As a result, no single explanation has gained universal acceptance. For many people, the most significant aspect of a near-death experience is not what was seen, but how life changed afterward. Individuals frequently return with a greatly reduced fear of death and a renewed appreciation for love, kindness, and meaningful relationships. Material success often becomes less important, while compassion, forgiveness, and service to others take on greater value. Many who report life reviews say they came back determined to correct past mistakes, repair relationships, and live in a way that reflects greater understanding and compassion. Whether interpreted as spiritual encounters or extraordinary psychological experiences, these accounts consistently encourage people to live with greater purpose and gratitude. They remind us that what truly matters may not be measured by possessions or achievements, but by the quality of our character and the love we share. Near-death experiences cannot settle the question of whether the soul exists, nor can they serve as definitive proof that consciousness survives physical death. They remain deeply personal experiences that invite reflection rather than certainty. Yet their remarkable consistency across countless testimonies continues to encourage both scientific inquiry and spiritual exploration. If nothing else, these experiences challenge us to remain open to possibilities that extend beyond our current understanding. For those who believe the soul is protected, near-death experiences offer a compelling reminder that the deepest part of who we are may be far more enduring than the physical body alone. Chapter 9. Living as though your soul is protected. Ideas have the greatest impact when they influence the way we live. Believing that the soul is protected is more than accepting a spiritual concept. It is choosing a different way of seeing ourselves and the world around us. If the deepest part of our being cannot be diminished by failure, fear, or hardship, then we no longer have to build our entire identity on temporary achievements or the opinions of others. Instead, we can begin to live from a place of inner security rather than constant uncertainty. This shift in perspective has the power to transform everyday life in quiet but meaningful ways. One of the first changes is the way we respond to fear. Fear often convinces us that every setback is permanent and every mistake defines our future. It urges us to avoid risk, resist change, and protect our image at all costs. Yet, if our true identity rests in something deeper than success or failure, fear loses much of its authority. We become more willing to learn from mistakes, pursue meaningful goals, and face uncertainty with courage. Confidence no longer comes from believing that life will always go according to plan, but from trusting that our deepest worth remains unchanged regardless of the outcome. Living as though the soul is protected also changes the way we relate to other people. When our identity is not dependent on comparison or competition, it becomes easier to celebrate another person's success without envy and to respond to disagreement without hostility. Forgiveness becomes less about excusing harmful actions and more about freeing ourselves from the burden of resentment. Compassion grows naturally because we recognize that every person carries struggles that are often invisible. If each individual possesses an enduring inner dignity, then kindness is no longer merely a moral duty. It becomes a natural expression of how we see humanity. This perspective also reshapes our understanding of purpose. Many people spend years pursuing wealth, recognition, or status, only to discover that these achievements alone cannot provide lasting fulfillment. While success can enrich life, it cannot answer the deeper questions of meaning and identity. Those who believe the soul is protected often begin measuring life by different standards. They value integrity over popularity, generosity over possession, wisdom over appearance, and love over recognition. These priorities do not reject worldly accomplishments, but place them within a broader understanding of what truly endures. Ultimately, living as though the soul is protected means approaching each day with quiet confidence and enduring hope. It does not require denying pain or pretending that life is easy. Challenges will still arise, losses will still be felt, and uncertainty will always remain part of the human experience. Yet beneath these changing circumstances lies an unshakable foundation. Every act of kindness, every moment of courage, every decision to forgive, and every effort to grow reflects the strength of a soul that cannot be defined by temporary conditions. To live with this awareness is to discover a freedom that no external circumstance can fully take away. Chapter 10. The greatest misunderstanding about the soul. One of the greatest misunderstandings about the soul is the belief that being protected means being untouched by difficulty. Many people assume that if something is truly valuable or sacred, it should be completely free from pain, loss, or struggle. Yet the wisdom of many spiritual traditions suggests a different understanding. Protection does not mean a life without storms. It means that storms cannot destroy what is deepest within us. The soul may pass through seasons of uncertainty, grief, and transformation, but its essential nature remains beyond the reach of temporary circumstances. Another common misunderstanding is that the soul's protection makes human experiences unimportant. If the soul endures beyond physical life, some may wonder why our choices, relationships, and actions matter at all. However, many traditions teach the opposite. Because the soul is enduring, every moment of life becomes meaningful. The way we treat others, the lessons we learn, the love we give, and the wisdom we develop all contribute to our growth. The soul's permanence does not make life insignificant. It gives life a deeper purpose and greater importance. People also sometimes misunderstand protection as separation from the world. They imagine that spiritual awareness requires escaping ordinary responsibilities, emotions, or relationships. Yet many of history's greatest spiritual teachers emphasize the opposite. True inner understanding should lead to greater engagement with life. A person who recognizes the value of the soul is often called to serve others, practice compassion, and bring more kindness into the world. The awareness that something eternal exists within us does not remove us from humanity. It connects us more deeply to it. Perhaps the most powerful misunderstanding is the belief that the soul's value depends on perfection. Many people carry the weight of past mistakes, regrets, and moments they wish they could change. They assume that their failures have permanently altered who they are. Yet the idea of a protected soul suggests that mistakes are chapters in a larger story, not the final definition of a person. Growth, forgiveness, and transformation remain possible because the soul is greater than any single moment of weakness or failure. The true meaning of a protected soul is not that life will never hurt us. It is that beneath every experience, there remains something whole, valuable, and enduring. Success cannot make the soul more worthy, and failure cannot make it less valuable. Praise cannot create its importance, and criticism cannot remove it. When we understand this, we begin to live with greater patience toward ourselves and others. We recognize that every person carries an inner depth that cannot be measured by appearance, achievements, or circumstances. The soul's greatest protection is that truth is its essence and remains untouched, quietly enduring through every chapter of life. Conclusion. The question of whether the soul is protected is one of humanity's oldest and most profound mysteries. Across cultures, generations, and belief systems, people have searched for answers about the nature of existence and the possibility that something within us continues beyond the limits of the physical world. While science, philosophy, and spirituality approach this question in different ways, the conversation remains deeply meaningful because it touches the core of what it means to be human. The idea of a protected soul invites us to consider that our identity may be far deeper than what can be seen, measured, or experienced through ordinary senses. Throughout history, countless traditions have described the soul as something enduring, an essence that cannot be destroyed by temporary events. Bodies change, circumstances shift, relationships evolve, and the mind experiences countless emotions throughout life. Yet many teachings suggest that beneath all these changes exists a deeper awareness that remains constant. This belief offers a powerful perspective. While we may experience pain, we are not defined only by our pain. While we may experience failure, we are not limited to our failures. And while we may face uncertainty, we are not without an inner source of strength. The protection of the soul does not promise a life without challenges. Difficult experiences remain a natural part of the human journey. Loss can still bring grief. Mistakes can still require accountability. And hardship can still test our courage. However, the belief in a protected soul suggests that suffering does not have the ability to erase our deepest value. Instead, challenges can become opportunities for growth, awakening compassion, developing wisdom, and discovering strengths we may never have known existed. The soul's resilience is revealed not because it avoids every difficulty, but because it continues through every difficulty. Understanding the soul in this way can transform how we live. It encourages us to look beyond appearances, both in ourselves and in others. It reminds us that every person carries a depth that cannot be measured by achievements, possessions, social status, or past mistakes. When we recognize this inner dignity, we become more capable of forgiveness, kindness, patience, and understanding. We begin to live not from fear of losing our worth, but from the confidence that our true value has always been present. Ultimately, the mystery of the soul remains an invitation rather than a conclusion. Whether understood as a divine essence, eternal consciousness, spiritual identity, or the deepest expression of human awareness, the idea of a protected soul continues to inspire hope. It reminds us that we are more than our circumstances, more than our struggles, and more than the temporary roles we play in life. Beneath every experience is a deeper reality, a source of resilience, compassion, and meaning. To recognize that possibility is to live with greater courage, greater love, and a renewed appreciation for the extraordinary mystery of being alive.